boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this, a second look at Yokato Valles' upcoming voluntary title defense and what is her return to the minimum weight division. Yokato will return to headline a homecoming event against Rocio Gaspar, July 18th. Valle, 33-3 with 10 knockouts, will defend her WBC minimum weight title when she opposes Peru's Gaspar, the 6th-ranked contender for her title. Valle, a 32-year-old three-weight champion, is coming off a split decision win against Marlene Esparza in what was a non-title fight in the women's flyweight division back in March.
Here's where it gets interesting.
It appeared at that time that Golden Boy Promotions was building Valle as a potential opponent for undisputed flyweight champion Gabriela Fundora, but Valle has returned back to 105 pounds to defend her throne under her own banner, Yoka Sport and Boxing Promotions. It never made sense to me for Yokato Valles, after having become a two-time minimum weight champion, to go up 2 weight classes to fight Marlene Esparza for no title at all. There had to be a rhyme and reason behind that, and it would appear,
Well, now we know what it was. They were trying to fatten up Yokato Valles for Gabi Fundora, and I said it then. I was against it. Doesn't make sense. There are enough girls right there in the flyweight division for Gabi to fight that we don't need to bring up a minimum weight as an opponent.
Yokato Valles is fighting a 3-fight winning streak since suffering a competitive 10-round unanimous decision loss to Senicia Estrada in March of last year for what was the undisputed minimum weight crown. Estrada retired soon after that and vacated the titles, which allowed Valle to win the WBC crown when she beat Elizabeth Corso last November in Guanacaste. Gaspar, she's going to be fighting, hasn't fought since she lost the unanimous decision to Tina Ruprecht back in December of 2022. Valle's challenger has lost 2 of her past 3 bouts, but she didn't fight for 5.5 years, from December 2016 until August of 2022.
Now, this is a voluntary title defense, not a mandatory.
The mandatory challenger to Yokato Valles' belt is Japan's own Umi Ishikawa, who holds the interim title, leaving one to wonder, why is Yokato fighting Rocio Gaspar instead of Umi Ishikawa?
She's easing herself back down to the minimum weight division, having last fought 2 divisions north at flyweight, and she wanted an easy one, a tick-over.
Nothing too difficult as she makes her way back down to her natural weight. That is my guess. And maybe she will fight Umi Ishikawa after that, or maybe she will fight one of the other champions at the weight, of which there are 3.
What's interesting is that Golden Boy Promotions was in fact trying to feed her to Gabi Fundora, the flyweight division's undisputed champion, when, as undisputed champion, there are enough girls, enough mandatory challengers right there that you shouldn't be trying to fight a minimum weight. Mexico's own Kenya Enriquez, the WBC's interim champion, is right there. Why doesn't Golden Boy make that fight for Gabi?
Kenny has literally been interim champion longer than Gabi's been full champion. Kenny has been interim champion since 2023, whereas Gabi didn't become champion until 2024. Why don't they do that fight?
Why don't they do the Vivian Ruiz fight?
Gabi's got another mandatory challenger via the WBA in Vivian Ruiz, and she's interim champion, like Kenya's interim champion, that there's absolutely no reason for a statuesque fighter like Gabi Fundora to be looking to fight a minimum weight.
Chava ESPN recently stated that Yokato Valles has separated from Golden Boy Promotions, and this was likely the deal breaker, that she wasn't going to let them feed her to Gabi Fundora.
The saving grace for Yokato Valles is she draws very well in her own home country of Costa Rica, where she promotes her own shows under her own promotional banner. So where most other fighters would have been stuck between a rock and a hard place, given what Golden Boy was trying to do, either fight Gabi Fundora or hit the road.
Yokato has the wiggle room that most other fighters don't have, because she has her own promotional outfit, she stages her own shows in her native Costa Rica, and they draw fairly well.
Or at least well enough that she's not going to allow herself to be the sacrificial lamb for Gabby Fundora.
There are better fights for the both of those fighters at their respective weight classes. And if what Gabby Fundora wants, a bigger fish to fry, move up.
You've already got all the belts in the flyweight division anyway. Start the process over at Superfly. But what I don't want to see is Gabby Fundora, Golden Boy Promotions, targeting a minimum weight. That's ridiculous. There are enough girls right there at flyweight that she should fight one of them.
So then I have to ask, he gets the win on Saturday, and then on Thursday we get this crazy news that Chavez has been detained by ICE. Did you have any idea that this was in the works, that they were looking at him?
In the works? Absolutely not, right? I got a text early Thursday morning, East Coast, probably around 4 a.m. from a immigration advocate that I know. And he said, just FYI, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. has been detained by ICE. And I said, what? And then later in the day, we'd find out more details. I think the confusing part is they identified him as someone to go after June 27th. Why it took until the following Wednesday night, I have no idea. I'm sure they certainly knew where he was going to be on June 28th.
Right. And do you know where he stands right now, where he is?
No idea.
No idea.
No idea.
Like the footage of him being detained in handcuffs is wild, because it was literally 3-4 days prior that he's in a ring.
On a big stage.
Yes.
Globally.
Yes.
Yes.
And so this never came up beforehand. To
Couldn't.
where, like,
if it came up beforehand, we couldn't go forward with the event. Right. The idea of ICE coming to the arena where we're putting on an event that is heavily Mexican influenced, that would never be something that we would consider doing.
Sure. Do you know what his status is as far as, like, will he be able to?
No idea.
No idea. Okay. That is a crazy one. Among the list of crazy things that you guys have had to deal with over the last...
A lot is being made about the timing of Chavez Jr.'s detainment. It seems almost like ICE waited good up until after he had the fight with Jake to go nab him. Why would they do that? Is Jake Paul in any way implicated? Is he involved in this?
It wouldn't surprise me, but at the same time, it doesn't change anything.
Because everything that Chavez had going on south of the border predates any engagement that he had with Jake. The warrant for his arrest from south of the border is about 2 years old, and the investigation that led to that warrant predates that. So whatever Chavez had going on starts way before Jake Paul even comes into the picture, yet some people feel that he's the one that tipped ICE off.
But all the available information suggests that ICE already had their eyes on this guy, even though he stayed in this country for over a year with an expired tourist's visa. That's what's leading to all of these questions. Why didn't they pick him up last year then?
Well, last year was the last year of the Biden administration, and we all know that the Biden administration didn't place much emphasis on deportations, whereas this administration does. That's the difference.
The timing of the arrest, perhaps because Julio Cesar Chavez was having this high-profile fight, it reminded those guys at ICE that, let's go get this guy. Or maybe Jake Paul did have something to do with it. I don't know. But it really doesn't matter, because all of this predates any arrangement he had with Jake. You're talking about a 2-year-old arrest warrant and an investigation that predates that.
Put simply, the timing of the arrest does not invalidate the investigation, so it really doesn't matter
when they arrested him, so much as that they arrested him. And he's in hot water now. I don't know what they're gonna do to him south of the border. That's for Scheinbaum and her people to decide.
Bottom line, while the timing of this arrest is an interesting point of contention, it doesn't matter that much.
Is he going to remain ranked because people were upset about this? What's happening? And now
who's upset?
I don't know. People, Joe X495.
You have no idea how many people tell us how people are trying to keep Jake out of boxing. How people are calling different people and say, if you work with MVP, you can't work with us. And to me...
Who's saying this?
Whoever it may be. We know who it is. This is a very small world. And we're going to continue to be gentlemen and keep confidential in terms of what we hear in the marketplace. But it's laughable, right? That you're that bothered by this young man and his success and his impact on the sport, that you're going to that length. I have no idea if the WBA is going to review it.
As of right now, he's 14.
He's number 14,
Yeah.
right? And I have a list here. I've been looking at it.
Okay.
The WBO number 11 fighter. And again, this is nothing against these fighters. This is just what this ranking systems are. And this is the reality of the sport. WBA is number 13. The WBA. So Jake is 14, the number 13 guy. 12 fights in. His last fight was against a guy who was 5-8 and was 2-4 going into that fight. Is that a tougher competitor than Chavez Jr.? Is that a tougher opponent, or Nate Diaz in a 10-round fight? Or Anderson Silva or Tyron Woodley, who are certified killers who are coming in and looking to put an end to Jake Paul?
I had to fact-check everything that Nikisa Biderian said when he sat down to talk to Ariel Helwani about Jake Paul's current rank in the WBA's rank standing, and it did check out. So I suppose the only indictment against Jake is that many of the fights that he's had weren't really against boxers, and the boxers that he fought...
You know, he lost to Tommy Fury. Mike Tyson was tantamount to a senior citizen, and while Julio Cesar Chavez was a former world champion, well, that wasn't at cruiserweight.
He's got no professional accolades as a cruiser. The other guys that Jake fought were, in fact, from different sports. Anything from basketball to mixed martial arts. So if there is an indictment against Jake, I guess that it would be that.
The silver lining is that the situation can still be salvaged.
How?
Run it back with Tommy Fury. Avenge the loss. If he does, well, now you're cooking with oil.
From here on out, it would seem that to earn that rank, Jake needs to start fighting cruiserweights. Bona fide cruiserweights. Then, there won't be nothing for anybody to complain about. Nikisa said that there are people within the sport that don't want them in the sport.
What, like other promotional outfits?
I don't imagine it was Golden Boy Promotions he was talking about, because Golden Boy just loaned them 2 of their fighters in Floyd Schofield and Zerto Ramirez. And I don't imagine that it was Matchroom he was talking about, since Matchroom loaned them Katie Taylor, not once, but twice.
Those 2 promotional outfits have worked with MVP on more than one occasion, leaving only Top Rank and the PBC. To my knowledge, they have no dealings with MVP. Could that have been who Nikisa was hinting at? Who Nikisa was talking about?
May have been. We know that the sport of boxing is in many ways a boys' club, and any new game in town, any new kid on the block, is sure to get a hazing of sorts, like Eddie Hearn did when he first entered into the American market. Could they now be doing that to Jake? It's possible, because Jake has proven himself a formidable adversary in his short time in boxing. Think about how MVP is not only working with DAZN, but they actually brought Netflix into the boxing space.
On that predication, some of the other game in town might view Jake and MVP as competition, and they don't like that. They don't want competition.
So I don't think that Nikisa was exaggerating. I don't think he was lying when he said what he said, but all they've got to do is keep doing what they've been doing and keep doing their own thing, because that's what's worked for them.
In men's heavyweight news, Tyson Fury names key fear for Moses Itauma over Dillian Whyte fight with a big warning.
Moses Itauma is set to make a big step up in his headline bout against Dillian Whyte, and Tyson Fury has had his say. Fury has warned that Itauma's August 16th bout with Dillian Whyte could end in disaster, suggesting it could end in a similar fashion to when Jared Anderson fought Martin Bakole last year. Whyte fought Fury in 2022, and the Gypsy King brutally stopped him to retain his WBC title. Itauma is the new prodigy on the block, and Fury fears it could be a step too early if he overlooks Whyte. Fury said it's a big step up for Moses because he hasn't really fought anyone on Dillian's level, though the old Dillian was a couple of years ago. It's going to be interesting to see how much Dillian has left. Could this be similar to what Martin Bakole did to Jared Anderson? Maybe it's too early. Maybe he passes with flying colors. And that's why you've got to watch it and find out.
A few key differences. Moses is not exhibiting the wavering commitment to boxing that we were seeing from Jared Anderson going into the Bakole fight. He's not exhibiting the same deficiencies either.
At the time, Anderson was a 24-year-old prospect who displayed his inexperience in the ring during his first bout with a world-level opponent. In the 5th round of their bout, on the undercard of Crawford versus Madrimov, 31-year-old Bakole brutally stopped Jared Anderson. Is that about to happen to Moses? Despite outlining that things could go awry, like they did for Jared Anderson against Bacoli in August, Fury believes the timing could be perfect for Itauma. It is true that Moses is facing a more weathered fighter than Jared Anderson faced in Martin Bacoli, where Martin Bacoli was in his early 30s, Dillian Whyte in his late 30s, approaching 40.
That's one difference.
While Itauma is establishing his presence in the professional scene, Whyte is reaching the final moments. In the final years of Matchroom's partnership with Sky, the former world title challenger headlined numerous pay-per-view events, successful ones. The Body Snatcher was part of the record-breaking World Heavyweight Championship fight with Fury in April of 2022, 3 years ago, when the pair fought in front of 94,000 at Wembley. The bout ended with Whyte being knocked out in the 6th. It's a good fight for Moses. It's a very good time to fight Dillian. He's had a couple of years out of the ring. Fury continued. The All-British Showdown is scheduled for Riyadh next month. With a professional record of 12-0, 10 wins coming by way of knockout, Itauma is a red-hot heavyweight prospect.
That's another difference, you know.
There may be some parallels to draw from Moses' fight with Dillian to Jared Anderson's fight with Martin Bacoli, but another difference between that situation and this one is that, frankly, I think Moses is more talented than Jared Anderson. He didn't all of a sudden look bad in that particular fight. Leading up to it, there were several red flags.
That's why I wasn't surprised when Martin beat the hell out of Jared. I said he was going to.
Tyson Fury said, "Make no mistake, Dillian Whyte is a massive puncher to the head and body. I know he's taking it very seriously. I've been speaking to Ty Mitchell, who's in training camp with him, and I'm looking forward to the fight." Fury is familiar with the 20-year-old's power and ability, having sparred with him while preparing for his first fight against Usyk. One thing I will say about Moses, he's a good fighter, he's a good boxer. He's like a sponge. You tell him something, and he absorbs it. He listens. He's only 20 years old. I told him years ago, don't worry about breaking records. You've only got one career. Take your time and enjoy it. Because I remember when I was 19 or 20, and now I'm 36, and it's gone.
I trust Moses going into this Dillian Whyte fight a hell of a lot more than I trusted Jared Anderson going into the Bacoli fight. I said that Bacoli would beat him, whereas here with Moses,
I think Moses has a higher ceiling than Jared Anderson, and I think he has more passion for the sport, more desire than Jared Anderson. So I trust.
I think he's gonna win. Unfortunately for Dillian Whyte, who I've been a fan of for many, many years, he's a madman.
He would have to be taking on this fight with Moses, but unfortunately for him, I think he's gonna get slumped. I think Moses is gonna knock him out.
The speed at which this kid gets his punches off, his agility, his footwork, his power, he's freakishly strong.
He's not even that big a heavyweight. Unfortunately for Dillian, I think Moses is gonna steamroll him.